Carlos will probably talk a little bit more about that, but I saw it today with some of the presentations that I saw from the students, from the schools that were here, you know, taking advantage of applications and collaborating and working together. And I think that's one of the interesting things about online learning with Google Docs and things like Slack that people have used for business, but moving on into education. I think there's a lot more ways to collaborate across different time zones and that we've not done. So, and face-to-face learning has also changed a little, which I'm going to talk about more. I talked about that. This is an area where this is not my strength. There are people that are much stronger in this. I think HP Reveal was something that was talked about a lot today, which I saw for the first time being used. That was the first time I came across it. I myself hadn't used augmented reality, but I saw the merge cube that was presented in eVillage today, which, wow. You know, there's so many things that you can do with that. But I think the challenge for us teachers, and it was brought up in the last discussion we had with Christina, was, oh, we don't have the time, or we've got to follow the syllabus, or my principal just told me to stop using technology, right? How do we combat that? How do we change their minds? How do we change the leadership idea? And I think that's kind of where I wanted to go with, and I am not going to go here because though it said that's what I was going to talk about, mashups is not my, not something that I do very well, but what I did, I took this image because that's the idea of mashups, is taking pieces from a lot of different things and creating something new. And I think I've seen that in the, you know, some of the presentations that have been up there today. So I think that the two things I could think of that were kind of good examples are GIFs and memes that people come up with all the time. Of course, there's always that issue of copyright when you come up with mashups. So. But that's for another discussion in another day. But that's, you know, what I had. These are some sources I have. I will answer more questions as it goes on, but I think I want to just give an overview of all of these because I think each individual person here is going to talk a little bit more. But I do have to say I was impressed with everything I saw in eVillage. I was impressed with what I saw people doing. But I still have the question of, is that the exception and not the norm? And how do we make it the norm? And that's where I'm hoping we can kind of get to today.
Mr. Scott, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Could you please find resources?
Thank you so much, Mr. Scott. And we do agree that there has to be some kind of application of the language into real world, and I think technology can definitely help us with that. Now, my second question is to Dr. Christine Sabieh. Dr. Christine, intercultural responsiveness and technology are part of our education space today. Do you think as educators and students, this affects us, and how does technology enhance communication exchange?
Okay, you ready? I'm going to take my 7 minutes. I might take a few more.
Most welcome.
Okay, the title of what I'm going to try and answer is the importance of intercultural awareness and the idea of technology importance. Now, basically, if we think of what's happening, globalization, and the idea that globalization continues to influence connectivity, basically, what are we talking about in our setups? We're talking about people connectivity. So we're thinking along the lines of people connectivity, and if we look at it in our setup, we're talking about educational spaces, social spaces, and workspaces. So as teachers, we're in workspaces, students are in educational spaces, we're working with students, and we're environment where social learning is happening, so it's social spaces. So basically the experience and opportunity to function and communicate becomes mixed. We're thinking about ideas that cultures become mixed, there's interpersonal relations going on, interpersonal, the student, you know, with the he, himself, me, myself, and I, the teacher with the student, so there's a lot of mixture going on. And then if we think about who is in that space, we could have native speakers of English, we could have non-native speakers of English, EFL, ESL, and or ESP. So we have diverse language learning that's happening in these communities of practice. So how does this affect us? Basically, if we think of it, we're language teachers. We could be native and non-native speakers of English. And our outreach is to work within communities where we are addressing and advancing the English language. So we're using English as a language to connect. And thus, basically, for example, in my environment, I being a person from one culture and I'm working in another culture. So there is a cultural exchange. There's communication exchanges, bringing in values and the diversity of values in one setting. And we're looking at how does this add to the idea of identity? How does this add to the identity and at the same time functionality? Where do people belong? Are we expecting them to adopt what I'm thinking of, or am I expected to adopt what they're thinking of, and how we're using the tool in that environment? So the idea of how do we use technology, how do we use it to promote English language learning, to be able to communicate with others, okay? And this is where we need to bring in the idea of the context that we are working in, okay? Who's coming from a high context, who's coming from a low context? For example, if I'm working in the Middle East, I'm talking about I'm working in a high context. So information is inferred from a context, okay? And we know that unless we actually spell it out to the student doesn't claim to infer, okay? Doesn't claim to infer, to understand what you're saying. So if I don't say to my student, this is exactly what I want you to do, they are not going to infer that I want them to go home and review and try out what we did in class today, because that's the type of environment that they are in. Suddenly, things became very loud. What happened?
Yeah, because they wanted to increase the volume.
Oh, okay. I mean, suddenly, okay. Okay, so I'm coming from a low context environment, and I'm working in a high context environment. So basically, we have a mosaic going on in this setup where communication is expected to develop, and we need to question what happens with teaching, what happens when teachers and students come together in an educational space. What are our teaching learning boundaries, our expectations, and our accountability? And how does technology bring this all together? Okay, how does technology bring this all together? My opinion is that technology enhances this and allows the exchange to happen. Why? Because we know with the tools exist, and we know that the support that exists with the use of the tools, we are using it for a purpose, and our students are using it for a purpose. So we're marrying this type of engagement to create a mediated environment whereby it could be face-to-face or it could be online. The idea is it's a learning space. It's a learning space. So I need to consider culture, the cultural dimensions, and the language acquisition issues. Now, in a world that we live in, we know that we are driven by technology, and we know our students are driven by technology. So we need to take that edge and use it to the advantage for us to develop them as language learners. So as the relationship happens, there is a lot of social media interplay. The more I use social media, the more they are at home, right? So let me use social media to the advantage of getting this to happen. If I'm going to use technology as technology based on the tools, then I'm creating different.
About it helps, you know, non-native English speakers to really improve their writing. And what I noticed that there is a very strong reluctance, you know, by English teachers to actually use the app or any other apps in the classroom, as a matter of fact. Exactly as Dr. Sabieh has just mentioned, basically. The bottom line is that we need to create a culture, you know, and we need to have this kind of cultural exchange. We need to actually enforce this through technology. Look, we are in 2019. It is really unapologetic in any way to say that technology is not important. It's not really that relevant to have technology in the classroom. Now, this is detrimental to the educational process. Being a modern teacher means that you have to use technology. Technology is so important, but the problem is what kind of technology? You know, we have a plethora, as I said, of applications out there. Which application? You know, if I do not develop this kind of culture, you know, that tells me, look, in my country, in Kuwait, in Lebanon, in any other country, in Korea, in China, what kind of culture do I have? And how can this culture be actually transformed into the World Wide Web in terms of applications? That's the bottom line. Our applications have to come from inside, from our own, you know, if you like, environment to serve our purposes. Importing applications would be extremely helpful, but we have to be selective. So what kind of technology we need in the classroom, you know? This is very important. To say only technology, to me, this is too broad a concept. What technology? What is technology? Do you want only to use Moodle or other administrative kind of programs? Do you want to use editing programs, writing programs, chatting programs, you know, or applications? We need really to be very specific. We need to be very selective. But at the same time, we need to be technologically educated, technologically informed. Because if we do not, you know, create this kind of culture, we will not be able to really utilize technology in the proper way, you know. Now, coming back to my question, to square one. Now, why teachers are reluctant to use technology, I do not know. Believe me, you know, in the project, you know, that was financed by the Kuwait Foundation for the Advancement of Sciences, I piloted my app actually in some Kuwaiti schools and some schools in Oman, in the hope that I would come up with a unified English writing curriculum to teach, you know, English writing. Now, when you explain the program and everything, people get really very excited to use it. But when it comes to using it, so many teachers, even university professors, find teaching something about pronouns, about backward reference, forward reference, as complex. So if a teacher at a university level finds teaching these basic things as complex, then what kind of technology are we talking about in the first place? You know, if I tell someone, look, this thing is really useful, use it, everyone is reluctant to use it. We ask teachers to use, for instance, certain programs for reading or listening. Why should I use it? Let me use the recorder, or let me use something else more traditional. We are still traditionalists, unfortunately. I don't know, so many teachers, especially, teachers who have this kind of psychological barrier between them and technology. Still, they do not want really to adopt these wonderful applications into their classrooms. One more point to add here regarding, exchange of culture. Within one classroom, if I use technology in the most effective ways and I have all my students engaged in like group work, let them come, create their own groups and discuss things. Let them write their own essays together, and this is what I actually do in my classrooms. The result is really wonderful. Every one of them comes with his or her background, as a matter of fact, and discuss how to write an essay. This creates a very important cultural environment in the classroom. At the end of the day, we are facilitators. We are not only teachers today. In 2019, we are facilitators of knowledge. We should give the floor to our students to come to interact with each other. What helps us in this interaction? Technology will help us. These wonderful applications that we have would definitely pave the way for a wonderful academic community at all levels. I would like to mention a wonderful program or an application that I actually use in my research, which is called Mendeley. Mendeley.com. You know, it's for free, downloadable. You know, let me just go probably here if I can have it for you. Anyways, you could write it Mendeley and
this is the mouse.
This is the. I think it's this one. But this, the fact is not working, so my fault. So where is it? Where is the browser? Okay. Now, let me go here. Go to mendeley.com. I wanted really to write this down. You will love this downloadable application, as a matter of fact. Mendeley.com. Mendeley.com, for instance, is a wonderful environment where actually we exchange our cultural backgrounds, exchanging knowledge, information about, how to write research together. Actually, this is a wonderful manager that we use in research. What this program does, for instance, you download the program, and then you simply download PDF articles. So when I do my research, I try to download PDF articles, that I use for my literature review for a particular work, for instance. Maybe 10, 20, 30 research articles, and then Mendeley will wonderfully, arrange them and classify them in a fantastic way. I can make bookmarks, I can take, for instance, citations, stuff like that, and guess what? Everything is done automatically, And when I cite from certain articles, and I'm done with my research, now I want to work on my reference list, right? Now, simply with a click of a button, the reference list is in front of me, and based on any style you like, APA, MLA, any style you like. Everything is done automatically. There's no need to actually make the reference list manually anymore. I mean, this program, could help you, and especially if you're working on a thesis, you're working on a research, it will save you a lot of time. Also, this is a wonderful environment for exchange, cultural exchange, because it will help you to ask other researchers about articles in the field you're actually researching. So there will be exchange of culture, exchange of information. This is a wonder. And by the way, this is not the only program for this. We have Zotero, EndNote, and Kicker. Q-I-Q-Q-A, Kicker. All right. So all of these wonderful programs or applications help us in our research, and they can make our life much easier. Now, why not use these programs? And in English 112, the course that we actually, Mr. Karim and I actually teach here at GUST, which is Freshman Composition 2, we ask our students to write research papers, right? And everything is done online. We use Turnitin.com to do that, and we try again to make sure they don't plagiarize. This is to do some kind of analysis, do some word analysis, corpus analysis, whatever. And they use other types of software like Wordsmith. Wordsmith is a wonderful program, or a monoconc, that we use for corpus analysis. When you see just how words are, they come, what company comes actually with these words, you see? Eventually, for managing the articles they use actually in their own research paper, I asked them to use Mendeley, and believe it or not, they are happier, they are more productive, they are more sociable, and they are more communicative, in my classroom. The bottom line is, technology is indispensable. We have to use it actually effectively in the classroom. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hussain. So to summarize, I think we need to change our perspective. Technology is to make our
as dynamic text, as affinity spaces, and semiotic development. So as dynamic text, video games are linguistically mediated. They use discourses to communicate the rules to learners, and they embody these discourses in action. So you have a message in the game that tells you what you need to do, but then when you do it, you succeed. So if you misinterpret the message, you fail the game. So essentially, the meaning is embodied in the text. All of these games simulate real life, so they represent cultural values, cultural practices in action. So by working with these games, by playing these games, you're essentially making meaning, you're experiencing meaning, you're decoding discourses, and you're also participating in affinity spaces. Affinity spaces are communities for sharing and disseminating knowledge, and with that large number of gamers worldwide, there are virtual communities online for pretty much every game that share strategy guides, secrets, tips, tricks, all sorts of information related to game design and play. And they have very sophisticated social structures and literacy practices that they turn into an apprenticeship system for learning gameplay. And you'd be surprised that some of our students who can't write a full sentence would write pages and pages of strategy guides or game reviews, and you'd be surprised to see how detailed the feedback they get from fellow players about their language, about their narrative structure, about it's very critical, very advanced, and very sophisticated. So around gameplay, there's that community of virtual community of players who communicate, interact, and create and share these texts about game-related topics. And that's a really good resource for authentic text and a really good space for L2 socialization. So just getting students to play a game and go online and participate in these communities. Go on a discussion board and talk to people about, oh, how can I do this in this game? Or I got stuck in this mission. Where is the clue? Or where can I find this weapon in this game? And you will find him or her getting in an endless conversation with people who share the same interest. And it gets addictive, trust me. So that's the affinity spaces. The semiotic ecology part is that the game system itself is a semiotic system made up of a network of signs. And these signs are meant to generate meaning. So as they play the game, they are creating a narrative, they are creating a story, they are making meaning. And that can be a prompt for a lot of interesting L2 practice activities. So you can have students play a game and come and tell their story, or write a narrative essay about their experience in gameplay. Or you can have them play a game collaboratively where one student is leading and one is checking strategy guides. So you can essentially plan language use inside the game by having students use discourses either inside the game or from online pages or discussion boards to guide gameplay. You can design L2Us in the game through gameplay, multiplayer online games where they collaborate with other players and interact through VoIP technologies like Skype to coordinate gameplay. Or you can coordinate or plan language use around gameplay where they either play together on site and discuss their gameplay, or by using gameplay as a topic for discussion and analysis later on. So the possibilities are really endless, and the potential really lies in the engagement and interest of students. So I really encourage everyone to just explore the ideas, see what your students do. If your students are gamers, maybe encourage them to talk about their gameplay in class, or maybe go into the gaming community and do something. And this can be extracurricular practice, but it can also be a structured assignment. And this is just very briefly what I look at, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Karim. And I do agree that I think there's a love for play amongst all of us, and there is no restriction of age, when it comes to playing. So I think all we need to do is to make the best use of games or digital gaming for encouraging second language learning. Now, we have all agreed that technology does help us for language learning. But there is always another side to the story, and we need to explore that also. So my next question goes to Mr. Rob Howard. Do you think we have taken tech too far? I mean, you are an EFL talker, and you gave a session on EFL, but I would still like to ask you, do you think that we are taking technology a little bit too far in education?
Yes, and as I only have 30 seconds left, that's it. Okay, so, have we gone too far? I'm sure when everybody read the title, Harnessing, the first thing everybody thought of, embracing technology, using technology. Me being kind of contrary and growing up with debate class, first thing I thought of was controlling technology. Putting a leash on it, putting a harness. Now, looking around the room, it's obvious. I come from a different world than you. Not what you're thinking, though. You're from public schools. You teach at universities. I'm from the commercial side. I have a business teaching English. So I look at things a little different. For the client and the student to come to me, they're going to pay me. So it's a different motivation. And that's what I want to talk about, harnessing. Now, we heard a lot of great talks here, and this has been a fabulous 3 days. And I've heard great technology, heard some wonderful speeches, and we've heard a lot about cloud-based education. But I want you to look at the other side. Have we clouded education? Let's look. Take a look what's on the market today. This now is my competition. Duolingo, I'll just use that as one, which came right after, I believe, Live Mocha. And they've got 20% of the English learning market. This market is $63 billion a year. They have 20%. The company is now valued at $700 million. And they do over 700 billion exercises a month. I have trouble getting my students to do one homework assignment. Think about online courses. Now, I started back in 2002 with an online company, which I still have, and back then it was extremely difficult to convince people that they could learn online via Skype, via anything else, and maybe I could convince 1 out of 50 people to sign up and take class. Now, millions are studying online. Thanks to me. And take a look at all the apps that are out there. We saw some of the apps that are available on the market, and it's astounding at how many apps are available to learn English. Asynchronous courses, there's great MOOCs out there. There's all these courses that I like to call press play to learn English courses, and people are taking them. YouTube videos, go to Google, put in YouTube, learn English, and you'll see millions of people who are looking to become the next rock star, who are going to teach you English in a few minutes, and they're looking for endorsements and 1 million likes. This is our competition. Facebook groups. Everybody has tips and bad grammar and cat pictures in these little Facebook groups that are going to teach you to speak English. This is our competition. WhatsApp. If you look at Facebook, it's, "Hi, I'm going to help you practice your English. Here's my number." This is what we're up against. And gamification. Somebody said it today. Who said that learning English always has to be fun? And we've made English fun, we've made it easy, we've given games. Now, I'm not saying I'm against technology, because I love it. But, for example, how are we using it? Here's Kahoot. And I see this all the time. I speak all over the world, and I see people using Kahoot as a teaching tool. Kahoot is not a teaching tool. How are you going to learn in a fast-paced game, basically doing multiple choice? It is not a teaching tool. A review tool, an assessment tool, sure, great for that. But teachers are using it to teach with. For me, all